On paper, this patient looks perfectly healthy. They hold a steady heart rate, complete daily routines, and easily meet professional obligations. But beneath that functional surface, the body is in alarm. Cortisol levels continuously spike, and inflammatory markers surge far above normal baselines. Phenomenon has deep roots in medical history. In the 1970s and 80s, clinicians observed a class of patients who did not project obvious sadness, but instead presented with severe, unexplained physical ailments that masked their underlying distress. Major depressive disorder with atypical features is a severe clinical presentation, accounting for these high-functioning cases. The data reveals a stark reality. Patients with this specific presentation attempt suicide at nearly twice the rate of those suffering from classical melancholic depression. This outward performance of wellness requires a state of continuous neurological executive override. Identifying the condition requires clinicians to look beyond behavioral cues and decode the neurobiology hidden behind the facade. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM-5, serves as the baseline for psychiatric evaluation. This chart illustrates that between 15 and 40% of all major depressive disorder cases present with atypical features. It is a massive subset of the disease that is frequently invisible to observers. A primary marker of this subtype is mood reactivity, the biological capacity for a patient's mood to temporarily brighten in response to positive external events. Because these individuals can experience genuine moments of pleasure at a dinner or in a meeting, their condition is deceptive. It masks the disorder from their peers, their doctors, and often from the patients themselves. This invisibility is compounded by the well-groomed patient bias. When a patient maintains a neat appearance and professional success, clinicians often interpret those traits as definitive evidence of mental stability. As a direct consequence of this bias, approximately 31% of adults in the United States living with moderate to severe depressive symptoms remain entirely undiagnosed. Atypical depression thrives in the gap between how a person looks and how they feel, making it one of the most difficult illnesses to detect in a standard clinical setting. To understand how this gap is maintained, we have to look past the patient's behavior and examine the brain's internal threat processing systems. This 3D model highlights the amygdala, a deep brain structure responsible for processing emotional distress and detecting chronic threats. During a masked depressive episode, this region enters a state of severe hyperarousal, firing continuous distress signals throughout the central nervous system. To prevent these signals from paralyzing the individual, the brain relies on the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, or DLPFC. The region governs from the amygdala, forcing the body to perform daily tasks despite the underlying neurological panic. Maintaining this neural suppression requires immense metabolic energy. Over time, that prolonged, forced effort physically degrades the brain's neuroplasticity. The structure of the prefrontal cortex literally alters itself through a process called synaptic pruning, where neural connections are aggressively eliminated due to unmanaged chronic stress. Maintaining a high-functioning career and social life is the direct output of a brain reaching its limit of neurobiological exhaustion. That exhaustion inevitably spreads from the central nervous system into the rest of the body, translating emotional pain into physical pathology. Historically, physicians labeled this masked depression because patients primarily reported physical ailments like migraines, joint pain, and digestive failure, while denying any feelings of sadness. Looking at this diagram of the endocrine system, we can see the HPA axis. The constant mental strain of masking depression disrupts this axis, triggering a continuous, toxic hypersecretion of cortisol. Clinical evaluations, such as the dexamethasone suppression test, have proven this endocrine dysregulation, identifying abnormal cortisol regulation in up to 50% of these patients. This chemical imbalance cascades directly into the immune system, multiplying inflammatory cytokines like interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha throughout the bloodstream. This hypnogram shows exactly how that baseline stress damages human rest. Compared to a healthy sleep cycle, the patient experiences disrupted REM latency and a severe loss of restorative slow-wave sleep. Even when hooked up to clinical monitors to track these exact physical failures, patients will frequently maintain a cheerful disposition with their doctors. Because their sleep architecture is shattered by physical stress, These individuals suffer from chronic, unyielding fatigue, no matter how many hours they spend in bed. Smiling depression operates as a full-system medical failure, quietly exhausting the body's primary defense mechanisms until they simply give out. The human brain and body can only suppress severe physiological distress for so long before that executive override finally collapses. This chart quantifies the danger of that collapse. The suicide attempt rate for atypical depression sits at 34.6%, compared to 20.3% for non-atypical cases. The elevated suicide rate stems from a severe lack of identification and support for patients who look functional right up until a crisis point. Medical researchers and clinicians are actively working to bypass behavioral observations entirely, developing rigorous physiological tests to locate the biomarkers hiding behind the condition. True recovery requires dismantling the performance of health. We have to treat the systemic, biological reality of the disease rather than the face it presents to the world. To save lives, the medical community must prioritize invisible physiological data over the visible performance of health.